And welcome back once again to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And since it's Monday night, well, technically Tuesday morning, but we're not going to mince words about that because it's time for new comics, bitches! So, I've been wanting to talk about the whole kind of Marvel Now thing. Um, But at the same time, I don't want to because, frankly, I don't care right now. I'm not excited enough to really get in it because we still have all this shit brewing with AVX, and apparently this is going to be, coming out of that. Part of this kind of, semi-relaunch. We're going to have. It looks like we're going to be they said there's going to be, the loss of a major character, possibly the death of a major character is probably what they mean, which is really at this time looking like it's Cyclops. And that will suck, because I'd like to see how Cyclops is, because Cyclops has been cool, obviously, one of my favorite characters of all time. And I just would like to see him, away from the influence of the Phoenix Force and so on and so forth. Because as you know, if you haven't been reading it, okay, so we'll talk about it a little. So we've got Rick Remender and John Cassaday are going to be doing Uncanny Avengers, which is basically looks like a team of 6. On the Avengers side, you've got Thor, Cap, and Black Widow, if I'm not mistaken. And on the Uncanny X-Men side, you've got Wolverine, Rogue, and Havoc is actually going to be the team leader. So it's not going to be Captain America. Captain America is not going to be the team leader of the Avengers. So that's really cool, actually, because I do love Cyclops, but I also really love Havoc, and I've missed him. So to see him kind of in more of a limelight type of role would be, I think, is a really neat idea. But I guess some of the bigger news is that. Bendis is going to be doing I think it's called the all-new X-Men, or whatever, as a play on the all-new, all-different X-Men from, like, Giant Size X-Men #1, where are actually going to be having the past X-Men, the original 5, traveling into the future, so that Jean Grey will actually be alive and in our current stream of continuity, or at least the Marvel Now continuity. And it will not be just a simple time travel thing where it'll be 6 issues and they're going to wrap it up. No, apparently they're here to stay, because apparently they're really freaked out over what's going on in the future. And even more important is that a lot of creators are leaving kind of like their signature books. Brubaker obviously leaving Captain America, and we'll get to that in this segment as I review the latest issue of Captain America. But Jonathan Hickman apparently is leaving Fantastic Four and FF in favor of he's going to be heading up the Avengers, the new Avengers series that's going to be coming out of Marvel Now. There's going to be like 17 or 18 members or something like that. It's going to be insanely huge. So I don't know what books are going to end up kind of axed because of that. I know that Uncanny X-Men is being axed, which is unfortunate because that has proven to be a surprisingly good book at times. So anyway, so one way or the other, it's something to look it's something that will be interesting. I'm like the most interesting thing to me about this whole thing, the thing that I'm looking forward to most, is the fact that John Cassaday is going to be doing regular, interior artwork again, as opposed to just doing covers, because I've missed his work a lot. So let's get into actually the comic reviews, shall we? Okay. So we're going to start off with Secret Avengers number 29. So basically we have John Steele acting as essentially a double agent on behalf of the Shadow Council, or actually on behalf of the Avengers, working within the Shadow Council, trying to keep the Max Fury and the Masters of Evil. There's there's a great page with a whole, fuck ton of of supervillains, and he's trying to stop them from getting the third crown of all these different crowns of power that the Shadow Council really covets. So we get, Ant-Man, Eric O'Grady, still kind of playing the traitor as far as the descendants are concerned. I like the fact that they have a wasp. I think that's just kind of interesting. But basically what we have here in this issue is that ultimately a hero will fall in in this nation of Begalia, which is a nation that is it's obviously a made-up nation, but it's playing host to a lot of villains, and they do not. All of these kind of other kind of sub, like the henchmen type villains, they all hang out like up top, because there's this hole apparently from where the Molecule Man and I can't remember who exactly it was had a fight, and they just basically created this hole in the earth, and that's where all like the real badasses go to hang out. Of course, Venom being on the team, since of course Rick Remender is writing this, so because it's pretty standard for every writer of a comic to kind of want to bring one of their guys onto a team book if they're writing a team book. Venom, he's not exactly out of place here, but at the same time he is, which is one of the things that kind of bothers me about Venom being on this team. And so basically this whole thing kind of ends up, in a bar where all these supervillains are hanging out, and they have like these strippers and everything like that, and hookers that are kind of like dressed up like superheroes, which I think is just kind of funny in and of itself. And Venom, as like the big kind of big tongue, more venomy Venom, goes to confront Taskmaster in the bar, because he's king shit around there. Because he's Taskmaster. Taskmaster is, he's such a great villain. And I remember Fred Van Lente's, short, it's like 5-issue miniseries that he did of Taskmaster. And it was such a terrific series. I doubt that it'll end up in trade, but I'm just kind of, I really like Taskmaster as a villain and as a sometimes kind of anti-hero. So it's a great character. I'm glad to see him here, and I'm looking forward to next issue, because we're really going to have good old barroom brawl between Venom and Taskmaster. Matteo Scalera, who does the art here, not a huge fan of the art here, but it's pretty good. It's passable. Plot-wise, it's a pretty well-constructed book. You're getting the sense that Ant-Man is really playing his role to the hilt here, and no character really seems wasted, and that's a good thing. So this is about a 3.5 out of 5. I take off about a half a point for the art, because it just didn't really work for me here. So 3.5 out of 5 for Avengers number 29. Secret Avengers, excuse me, number 29. Wolverine and the X-Men, number 14. This was a really iffy issue for me because, it's basically how do you make the most, like, the kindest and the most noble of all of the X-Men, possibly, become, like, the biggest dick in the X universe. Basically, you give him a you give him a main course of Phoenix Force and of course a side dish of Satorak, and you have Colossus. Here he has the big kind of catalyst of this particular issue is that Colossus shows up at the school, at the Jean Grey school, and asks Kitty out on a date because he obviously still loves her, but she's not too fond of him right now because she sees the corrupting force that not only Satorak, but especially the Phoenix Force has had on him. And he wants her. And he will stop at nearly nothing to make sure that she is on his side and that she loves him and trusts him, because they're doing all these great things. Cyclops is sealing up the San Andreas Fault, and they're planning on using Bobby Drake to kind of assist with some of the taxing of global warming on the Antarctic, and this is this issue started to kind of smack of Civil War in the sense that we are starting to have kind of some not flip-flopping sides within people going from one side to the other. Because the X-Men, this is the whole thing about the concept of AVX that kind of bothers me, is that Avengers are essentially, they're Avengers, and that's the side that they're going to stay on. But the X-Men, they're somewhat divided by this. Kitty's trying really hard to hold the school together, with some very interesting results, such as, Toad teaching tongue fighting in a particularly fun scene, because Jason Aaron, he does know how to bring the funny when it's necessary, and he knows how to bring the drama when it's necessary. And we have Cyclops just turning into a furious, fuming dickhole in this issue, and it's just I don't like seeing him this way, and maybe that's the point, is that it's forcing you to look at this character in a different way, see the corrupting force of the Phoenix Force, because you can definitely tell that it's taken over Cyclops, and it's taken over Namor, and it's taken over Emma, and so on and so forth. But I admire how this book is kind of standing on its own, apart from the AVX. It's obviously a tie-in, but this issue didn't have to be a tie-in. This could have happened pretty much at any point. So basically we have Cyclops kind of almost declaring war on the school itself. We kind of leave Warbird to her own devices from the previous issue, which was so great and so wonderful. So there's not a lot of follow-through, but that's okay, because it's nice to have these individual kind of more character-based issues to break up the monotony here. So this is kind of in both of in a realm of two places. It's kind of doing a more personal story, but it is very much on the grand scale of things like they capture Ben Grimm, thanks to Magic, and of course, Iceman. And he's starting to really rethink this whole thing, which is why he's kind of coming back on the more neutral side, if you will. This was, it was a good issue. Jorge Molina, the artist on this issue. Again, it really makes you long for Nick Bradshaw's work, or even Chris Bachalo's work. I'm really much more at this point in time a fan of Bradshaw's work than Bachalo. And he doesn't really have a very good grasp of character, as far as, I guess, more emotion rather than character. That's more what I meant to say. And I think it's funny that, that this date is basically taking place, with, as a sea is parted and they're eating, and, and Cyclops is basically, he's having seafood with Kitty, he's having shellfish with Kitty, who is Jewish. So I thought if that is kind of a point here, then I thought that was just kind of a neat touch, because she does say something to Iceman later on about whether or not he might want to ask her out on a date. Basically to never take her to a seafood restaurant. Whether that's more of a, that she's just so disgusted with the date itself and this whole thing, what Cyclops or what Colossus has done, or that, that she is, that she is a Jew, and that, she doesn't eat shellfish. So, either way, solid issue, 3.5 out of 5 for Wolverine the X-Men number 14. And so moving along, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 690. So we have basically Madam Web appears in the midst of this Spidey versus Morbius melee to basically warn Peter about the future. That he needs to get back to Horizon Labs like right away, because there's what's going to happen there is really going to outline his future and whether or not he'll be alive in it. She also apparently intimates that Silver Sable is still alive. And naturally, Peter doesn't believe this, but I mean, he's, this is a pretty unsuccessful intervention on Madam Web's behalf, because he still kind of continues his fight with Morbius, because Morbius, he's taxed, so he needs to go feed, and so he just kind of, eventually, I don't know why this didn't happen before, but just kind of webs him up and sticks him on a light pole, and gets back to Horizon, where of course Kurt Connors is he's very purposefully, systematically turning a lot of the members of, the kind of like the main members of Horizon Labs into kind of his lizardites. But he's, of course, at the same time, seems to be becoming more human. And of course, the lizard part of his brain is disgusted with that. Now, those of you who have seen the Amazing Spider-Man film, I actually start to really see parallels between this kind of plan that he has and the film itself. So you'll be hard-pressed to call me a cynic and say, okay, well, this is actually even more of kind of like a Dan Slott or the editorial staff at Marvel wanted to say, okay, let's make a lizard story that will somehow tie into the film, so that when people go into the comic book stores after seeing the film and read Amazing Spider-Man comics, they'll see, okay, well, yeah, the lizard kind of does this. But of course, he sees, the kind of the big kind of revelatory moment for Kurt Connors in this issue is his dealings with Uatu. He keeps seeing his son Billy, who he actually ate. And this is again bringing out more of his, what he considers to be his very weak-willed human side. And again, this is conceptually it's very interesting. And we have the Kingpin is kind of just kind of inching his way back into this title with the Hobgoblin. We have, of course, the kind of cliffhanger that we end on here is that because of, there's, one of the scientists at Horizon is actually working for the Kingpin, or being intimidated by the Kingpin, and kind of does this thing that gets him all this data, and it also inadvertently kind of lets loose all of the other, all of the kind of shut-in lizardites, which could lead to Carly getting et. And Spidey is just kind of making his way back into the building as all of this is unfolding. So, but of course it ends on a more kind of emotional note, with the sense that, that basically Kurt has figured out how to turn himself back into the lizard with mutant growth hormone, but does he want to? So, again, this book, it's never bad. It's never just bad, but it continues to frustrate because it's not as good as we know that Dan Slott can make this book. Again, the art by, Cameron Coley is just, and it's just so bland because, again, it's Klaus Janson inking. I know that I keep making a point of pointing this out, but it really needs to be pointed out because he's not, it's just one of those things. You can't have Klaus Janson as the inker on a book because his work will make things look like Klaus Janson work. That's just a thing. It's going to happen. So, I feel bad for Cameron Coley that he has such a kind of dominant inker. So, again, from an idea standpoint and from an execution standpoint, this is a pretty good book. It's not terrible, but again, it's not at the level of greatness that we know that Dan Slott can get to. So this is about a 3 out of 5. Kind of edging kind of towards 3.5, but it's definitely a solid 3 out of 5 for Spidey 690. So moving on, so the Ultimates, number 13. Okay, so this is kind of like the second part of Divided We Fall. And if I had a physical copy of this, I would point out the cover. And that's actually something that I want to talk to you YouTubers about, because I know that some of you out there have actually, you've done kind of a split screen thing where you'll show like the image of the comic cover during your commentary or during your review of it. I kind of would like to do that because there are things that I would like to, I would like to show these things. Most of these things I get them digitally because I don't feel like spending the money on them, and I have friends who send me digital download codes, so that's cool of them to just basically because again the resale market for these comics is shit right now, so it's best almost to not spend the money on the physical issue and just be able to read it. And I'm actually liking some of the digital techniques that they're using right now. So, but that's more of a debate for a different time. So basically, the cover, because this was like my favorite cover of this week because it had this, just basically, Cap just kind of, because basically Cap is back in this issue. It's like, yeah! And he's kind of running into battle, and he's got like a bullet in his teeth, like he's chomping down on a bullet. It's just like, that's really cool. I like that idea. I like that he's just such a badass that apparently he might have even caught a bullet in his teeth, or he's just chewing, or he's just kind of biting on it because it's like, argh. So it's cool. So basically, Jonathan Hickman completely off the title now. And Sam Humphries has come in. So we have basically, we have Cap is back. Basically, that's this issue, is that Captain America has come back to the United States because it's fragmenting. Obviously, all this horrible shit has gone on. The destruction in Washington, D.C., and the kind of separating, Texas kind of separating itself from the rest of the United States. They've seceded from the Union. Of course, all the chaos that's just going on in the Southwest in general, you know, with anti-mutant groups just kind of almost indiscriminately killing regular civilians, not even mutants, just, you know, killing kind of everybody. And, you know, of course, the Sentinels and the Nimrods and everything like that, also just kind of killing everybody. And, you know, there's just, it's a lot of combat and a lot of people reacting to seeing Captain America again, particularly, you know, the President, Director Flum, you know, Carol Danvers, who kind of comes back and is basically invited by the President to become his Chief of Staff, and also, of course, Iron Man. You know, because there are, of course, economic repercussions to everything that's going on here. And Tony's just not interested in it because he's looking at the information about his tumor. You know, because it doesn't say whether it's malignant or not. There's no real results of a biopsy that can be quantified for him. But once he sees that Cap is back, he puts on a new set of armor, which is looking a lot more like, you know, basically the Iron Man kind of extremist armor that we're used to seeing more recently, as opposed to kind of the... I actually really like the design of kind of the Ultimate Iron Man prior to this. So the fact that they've been kind of more and more inching towards a like a very separate-looking that'd be inching away from a more separate-looking Iron Man to someone who looks like it's the Iron Man of the 616 universe. It doesn't really bother me, but I just think they could have gone in a slightly different direction. But so it's basically we get, you know, and Thor, you know, it's basically he comes back from Asgard. You know, kind of mourning for the loss of all of his, you know, all of his fellow Asgardians, and you know, so it's the three, it's the kind of the Trinity. You know, you have Cap, Thor, Iron Man, back, and they're in fighting strength, all of them. So, you know, and we have kind of the mysterious. Benefactor to the state of Texas, threatening to launch a nuke at the United States. And this mysterious benefactor that we first saw however many issues ago in one of the issues of the Ultimates, his presence is very much more coming to bear. So it's just I miss Hickman as a writer, but Sam Humphries is doing a pretty good job of kind of keeping the torch aloft. His ideas are not quite as high concept as what Hickman was doing with, you know, with the, you know, Tomorrow Children and everything like that, and the you know, the Cities of Heaven and everything like that. So maybe Humphries is looking to get this more down to earth. I don't know, but you know, this was just a really good issue. I mean, I love the, you know, I like the character moments in this especially, is because he's definitely not taking any kind of really new approaches to Captain America here. You know, Captain America is still very much using the vernacular of, you know, kind of his native time, if you will. So I really like that. I really appreciate that he took the time to, you know, to really look at, okay, well, this is what this Captain America would say in this situation. Instead of, you know, wrong, sucker, you know, he's saying wrong, buster. You know, that's just more of a, you know, kind of like a 40s vernacular type of statement. So, I mean, I really admire that. I just think that small details like that are very important. So that's just, you know, it was a very good, very solid issue, 4 out of 5 for Ultimates number 13. Now, here comes my real disappointment of the week, and that is Captain America number 15. Now, this is the first issue where we see Ed Brubaker working with Cullen Bunn, who will be taking over the series in a very short period of time. And Cullen Bunn, you know, who also took over Captain America and blank, you know, because it's like Captain America and Hawkeye, Captain America and Iron Man, Captain America and the Falcon, whatever. I didn't like his take on the characters after, you know, kind of post Captain America and Bucky, so I dropped that title. And if this issue is any indicator of how Cullen Bunn's work on Captain America Solo is going to shape up, I might be dropping this one too, because this was not a very good issue at all. Basically, we have these new villains, the Discordians, which is like the most on the nose description of a group of villains, probably since either the Sinister Six or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. It's so like, oh, come, really? They're here to create discord. Okay, we get it. And, they all have these different powers, and Cap and Falcon and Sharon, they're all trying to take him down. And but, in the midst of all of this, we have this kind of television pundit who's on TV, and everybody's kind of watching this, even as they're under attack. This guy, Reed Braxton. He's almost kind of like a Glenn Beck-esque, Rush Limbaugh-esque kind of guy. He doesn't. I mean, it's not kind of as extreme as that. I shouldn't really say that. I mean, he's basically a very conservative type of pundit, and and he's basically saying how antiquated Cap is. That basically, this is the man who's kind of wearing the flag, so he should be able to affect all these different things. It's being very unreasonable, though. So it is kind of extreme, because, it's like, how is he going to protect us from the bad economy, and how is he going to protect us from the rising price of gas, and all this other stupid bullshit. And, of course, Cap is getting incensed about this, and it's, there's some weird stuff going on between, Diamondback and Sharon Carter. I never get the sense, really, throughout this issue that there's a significant threat. Except the fact that we do learn that this Reed Braxton guy, in reality, is dead. He has been murdered, and somebody is taking his place. We get, of course, Codename Bravo and the Hydra Queen and Barrett and Zemo, kind of all, saying, well, this is kind of what we want these things to do, because the Discordians, they kind of burn out after a certain period of time. And, so it's kind of the way that, if you remember back to when Mark Millar and Brian Hitch were doing the Ultimates, like a lot of their kind of like the bad, the evil Ultimates, if you will, they kind of burned out their energy after a certain amount of time of expending this great energy. They would all die. So basically, they were all kind of kamikazes, and that's what kind of these Discordians seem to be doing. So the real problem that I have with this issue, apart from the Scott Eaton art, which is just horrifically awful, is that Brubaker he's liberal. Okay, I'm a liberal. I can get behind that. But he's wearing his heart a little bit too much on his sleeve here, because that it's that we're taking that's everybody seems to be listening to this guy who's just kind of screaming at the heavens. I mean, whether or not it's some kind of obviously it's some kind of plot. But the fact that he's kind of calling out these the people that you would see on Fox, or if you listen to Limbaugh or you listen to Glenn Beck, these people that just kind of cry to the heavens, and just keep calling, just making these ludicrous statements that have no bearing on reality whatsoever, and are completely meaningless. Except to kind of the, like the, right-wing nutballs that just really hang on these people's every word. And so that rings a really false bell for me. I didn't like that at all. It seemed very out of place here. So, again, whether or not that's Brubaker's influence or Colin Bunn's influence, I know that, because Brubaker has kind of not attacked, but he's kind of taken on the Tea Party and things like that in his work on Cap, previous to this whole kind of relaunch, whatever volume this is now, with when Bucky was Cap, and basically using all of this kind of this discord in the in the national. In kind of the national health of the United States, the national morale, and kind of putting his kind of putting his finger on the pulse and seeing because obviously I think that this book might be, to this issue particularly, just seemed very agenda driven, and so that was just another reason that I was disappointed. So this was at best like a 1.5 out of 5. Because it didn't do anything for me. It just didn't get me going at all. So 1.5 out of 5 for Captain America number 15. But this brings us, thankfully, to Winter Soldier number 8. Basically, what we have here is that from the really awesomely shocking events of the previous issue, Leonid has taken Natasha hostage, and has kind of, from all these people that he's killed over the past couple of years, he's been active, has kind of jury-rigged this this device that they use, basically a brainwashing device that they used to use in the Red Room, where both Leonid, Natasha, and even Bucky himself used to go, because that's where they received their training. That's where they received their brainwashing. So basically, we have that, and Bucky is beating people basically within an inch of their lives, or just simply taking them, to kind of get as much information on the people that Leonid might be working with, that he's been using, the technology. And here we have, again, one of Brubaker's strengths is using his supporting cast. And we have Jasper Sitwell, who's been kind of, he's really been on the ball throughout this whole series. And here we get to see him more out of, the wherever they're working from, and out on the street with Bucky, even if it's just to meet over a cup of coffee. And it just really gives Sitwell a couple moments to really shine here in his intelligence, because he is, he's a genius. And as he's actually fond of kind of pointing out to Bucky, that he's a really smart guy. And this kind of leads them to some of the possibilities of people that Leonid worked with, and ultimately this leads to Leonid, for some reason. I mean, I knew it from the moment that I knew what was coming. Basically Leonid, he shoots out the tire. There's someone leaving a ballet. And shoots out the tire. So once I saw ballet, it's basically kind of like the prima ballerina of this company is walking outside, shoots out the tire of an oncoming car. The car, of course, has to swerve, and it actually hits her. Doesn't kill her, but damages her enough, of course, so that they can't go on with their production. But who, of course, is there to save the day? The prima ballerina, herself, Natalia. So that's kind of how the book ends. And I saw that coming a mile away, because obviously knowing Black Widow, knowing that she's a ballerina, so on and so forth, or that she was, as far as one of her Red Room, identities had classified her as. So I'm liking where this is going. The next issue is going to be the finale. This doesn't leave me on quite the same kind of cliffhanger note that the previous issue had left me on, which I was really excited about. But there's still some really exciting stuff going on in this issue. There's a lot of talking, but it's a dense, well-populated, well-balanced comic book. And of course, Michael Lark, just he's such an incredible artist. I just love his stuff. So this was a very solid 4 out of 5 for Winter Soldier number 8. So now moving into the territory of the Independents. First, Angel and Faith number 12. So for those of you who are Buffy/Angel fans, fans of the Whedonverse, this is really the book to watch. I know that Ghost Critic, I know that you out there have been reading Buffy as I have been reading Buffy, and I think that we're both kind of not very happy with the direction that book's taking right now. But Christus Gage and Rebecca Isaacs in this particular arc are crushing it. They're doing a great job with Angel and Faith. They have a much better handle, I think, on the characters than Andrew Chambliss does on the characters that populate kind of the Buffyverse. So in the Angelverse here, we have, we have basically Angel, Faith, Willow, and the Scythe, kind of the Frey Scythe, and Connor going to Quartoth, which of course, for Angel fans, is where Connor spent a good deal of his youth, many years of his youth. Because basically he disappeared and then reappeared as like a 15 or 16-year-old in just a matter of months that he was stuck in Quartoth, which is basically a hell dimension. So this is our first peek actually into Quartoth, and we have just these, we have, basically as soon as they arrive, Willow notices that she's got her magic back. So her mojo is working again. So basically this whole issue is really about having a good story and some really good character beats, particularly between Angel and Connor. Because, we start to see that Connor, who has been, kind of living under this magical spell for a while, of course, until the seed of magic was broken, that that he has been, kind of woken up from this, remembers everything about Quartoth, remembers growing up with Holtz in Quartoth, and had an unexpected, as we see in this issue, had a very unexpected influence on some of the beings within Quartoth, and that is to embrace the idea of love. So they have actually held Connor up as almost a messiah of sorts, and because they have kind of renounced their evil ways, they're getting decimated. And of course now Connor has this feeling of responsibility, because basically they go in, they get what they need out of Quartoth, but they see that part of the issue here is that it's bringing all of kind of like their darker elements of their personas to the forefront. Just being in Quartoth, just the kind of aura that this place has to it, it's bringing out kind of the more, the darker, the darker shades of being for all of them. And so so they kind of have to stay on Quartoth to save these kind of innocent people. And meanwhile, back home, we have Whistler dealing with Giles's aunts, and there's some funky shit going on there, and I'm not quite sure what exactly Whistler's game is here, but I'm anxious to find out. So this is just, again, another terrific issue. Rebecca Isaacs, I do, just kind of as a rule, prefer Chris Samney's art, but Rebecca Isaacs, of course, does a terrific job on this art-wise. So this was, again, solid 4 out of 5 for Angel and Faith number 12. So like I said, if you're not reading this and you're a fan of the Buffyverse and you're a fan of the Buffyverse comics, Angel and Faith is definitely a much better representation of the Angel universe than kind of the Angel, kind of the Angel solo book that was out for a while. I didn't like the way that book worked out. Moving along, so we have The Spider, number 3. We have a lot more really awesome pulpy goodness. I'm so glad that I picked up the first issue of this, because otherwise I might not have even cared, because the Spider is a character that I know from the pulps. I never really read a whole lot of it, but was interested. But this series is terrific. It's got everything you want from kind of a modern day reboot of a pulp, this iconic pulp figure. So basically we have Richard Wentworth. He has, he's trying to get info from Nira, from his ex, because of course she's married to the police commissioner, and she's a reporter herself, so she can get some of the inside dope on the investigation into not only the Spider himself, but into the villains of the piece, into Onput. And there's some really nice character work going on there. We really get a good sense of their relationship, and what kind of guy that Richard Wentworth is. And then we get, and he also confronts, Richard also confronts his father, who is basically kind of a warmongering industrialist. He's very much like he's kind of like Howard Stark if Howard Stark were evil. Or not evil, just, had a much less of a moral compass. Because some of the tech that was used by Onput in some of these gas attacks that she's been letting out are leading back to Wentworth Industries. And so basically while he's there, he plants this cool little like spiderish bug on his father's computer. And of course this all leads back to Ram Singh, and it's just and then when he finally does confront Onput, it's this very kind of, the dialogue, the exchanges that these two have. The Spider, he takes his work obviously very seriously, but he also has time to get a little down and dirty and have a little bit of fun with the people that he's going up against. Like in this one scene, the coolest moment in the whole fucking issue is she throws a bunch of darts at him that are concentrated tarantula venom. And she's about to basically slit his throat, and she reveals, of course, that she knows who he is, and knows that he's really Richard Wentworth. And basically, he reveals that he went up against another kind of tarantula-themed villain. In past battles, and has actually been eating tarantula venom for breakfast, so he could build up an immunity to kind of the weapons that this other character used against him. So these tarantula darts don't really work on him. They do, but they don't, and they don't, but they do. So it could go either way. And it's just, again, it's more pulpy, just great feeling about everything. And then we have, this kind of, cliffhanger, this massive cliffhanger at Citi Field, which is, of course, where the Mets play. And being from Chicago and being a Cubs fan, I don't really have a whole lot of pity for anybody who's a Mets fan. But obviously I understand that in the interest of the comic and the interest of the characters there, obviously, they need to be cared about because they are just, unfortunately, stupid human beings because they're Mets fans. Or just evil, I don't know. But again, no, not really, like I said. But that to me is, that's just more my take on it. But again, this Colton Worley just doing an absolutely fantastic job on art in these issues, just kicking some serious ass here. So terrific issue, 4.5 out of 5, all the way for the Spider number 3. And on to American Vampire number 29. So basically we have, this is really kind of, it's kind of a, it's very well balanced. Basically, Pearl and Skinner, Sweet, are teaming up together as agents of the VMS, and they're basically posing as kind of government agents on behalf of HUAC, or the House of Un-American Activities Committee. And basically, how they're trying to root out communists that are being kept safe by these by Hollywood stars or producers or whatever, and they do happen to stumble upon of course, but they're using this guise to actually root out vampires. So like the whole Reds under beds, that they touched because this whole arc is called the Blacklist. So I appreciate the fact that the way that Snyder is using, okay, these are real life events, this is real history, but just taking a little bit of fun with it, having spending some liberties with it, and so we have this kind of showdown between Pearl and Skinner and this one producer and a vampire that he is in fact sheltering. And this producer has a whole den of like lions and very fierce cats, and so we have Skinner versus like a lioness and all these other kind of jungle cats, and then Pearl versus just a kind of Carpathian vampire, because we do have the classifications now. That's basically what this whole book is about. It's about it's American vampires, and the only thing they are susceptible to is lead, or is gold. Excuse me. And there's just a great moment where Pearl Preston basically after she's kind of dispatched, or is kind of letting the sun do its work on one of these vampires, and she and the vampire's like, we'll kill you and your husband, and she just kind of says, shh, I'm tanning. And it's a great moment for Pearl, and Skinner notices that she's kind of gotten a little bit rougher around the edges, especially since she kind of left him for dead back in Japan, and so the fact that Skinner, of course, he's kind of the both Skinner and Pearl are kind of the through lines for this entire book. That Skinner kind of keeps seeming to die and then coming back, and so on and so forth. I would like to see some more characters get themselves involved here, but ultimately it's Pearl and Skinner, and they're going to be the stars of this book. So we just we have of course this big threat that's looming on the horizon, and Skinner Sweet may himself be part of it. And Skinner, of course, has some internal issues of his own. Internal meaning actually inside his body. He's got this kind of release device that if he basically, he kind of ended up working for the VMS, because when Pearl stabbed him with the gold, back in that arc of American Vampire, it left this kind of gaping wound, and the VMS actually put this device in there that is kind of programmed, some kind of primitive, kind of nanotechnology, if you will, that is designed to release gold into his bloodstream if he ever decides to cross any members of the VMS. So that's kind of how they got him on his leash, on their leash, if you will. But Skinner is not one to be leashed lightly. So it's just some really nice action beats, some really terrific character moments in this issue, getting kind of right back on track, right back to where American Vampire should be going. Of course, Raphael Albuquerque just doing some amazingly beautiful art. Snyder just kicking ass in the writing. Very solid 4.5 out of 5 for American Vampire number 29. So going into DC now, Flash number 11. Again, so we have, this is basically, Barry is kind of staying on the QT, basically keeping his fact that he's alive kind of on the down low, so that he can kind of work out all of the issues that he needs to in regards to how to best kind of reintroduce himself to the city again. Because people believe that he's dead. His girlfriend believes that he's dead. Iris is still trapped in the Speed Force. So he goes to this kind of very dingy kind of just really awful bar in this in kind of one of the poorer sections of Keystone City, and of course, as we find out, it's a rogues bar. And Barry actually wants a job there. Of course, nobody realizes that Barry is the Flash, so that's good for him, because the first person that he meets there really is Captain Cold. And, we have Dr. Elias doing his whole kind of almost an anti-Flash campaign here, and that's obviously very troubling to Barry. But ultimately we have Captain Cold versus Heatwave. And it's something about what basically Heatwave has a grudge against Captain Cold because it was something that apparently he did to the Rogues. So what did he do? And then Flash kind of steps in to kind of stop this bar brawl before it gets too either chilly or too heated, because you got the hot side saying hot, and the cold side saying cold. Yes, basically it's something like McDLT. Points for you if you can actually remember that reference. So this is just it's a good issue. There's no problems. It's not very dense, but it's nice, and it's a very breezy read. Feels good throughout. I'm liking the direction this book is taking, although I'm really missing Francis Manapul's art, because they got Marcus Toe is doing the interiors, and Manapul is just kind of confining himself to co-writing with Brian Buccellato or Buccellato, excuse me, and doing the covers. So sad, but it's still 4 out of 5. It's a very solidly written book. I mean, it's just nice and easy breezy, lemon squeezy. It's very good, very nice little book. And Justice League Dark, number 11. Basically, this has kind of like the matchup of the week, if you will, as it has. We have Felix Faust versus John Constantine. I won't say too much about this book. I just mentioned John Constantine. I feel like I have to have a cigarette. By the way, there is a new porn parody out there called The Dark Knight XXX. And actually Constantine and Zatanna are 2 of the characters that appear in it's so stupid. I actually watched it fast forward through all the sex scenes so that I could just get to how they portray the characters. It's actually kind of fun. And the Batman in that is actually wearing like the Arkham Asylum Batman costume. So anyway, I'm getting way off topic. So those of you who know me know my kind of, not obsession, but certainly my kind of unabashed love for porn parodies, particularly of superhero films, or superheroes, just period. But Justice League Dark, now that Jeff Lemire has taken over this book, I really like the way that this group is gelling together as a cohesive unit, because that was something I did not get a feeling of prior to this book. I'm liking the character work a lot that he's doing, particularly with characters like Deadman. Deadman is he's such a cool character, although I am a little bit questioning, okay, how exactly is he able to speak now and be heard by living people? I don't know if there was something that I missed, whatever. So if there's somebody out there who can answer that, please do. But of course, the big question to me here in this issue was the character of Timothy Hunter. Now, I really, aside from Hellblazer and Swamp Thing, those were the only 2 kind of like magic-related, elemental-related, whatever you want to call them, books that I read, and certainly not even on a regular basis. Aside from, of course, the legendary Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing and Garth Ennis's run on Hellblazer. Those are really the only stuff that I've read, and Jamie Delano's kind of premiere work on Hellblazer. But I'm assuming that, now, and watching Ghost Critic's review of this issue, that Timothy Hunter is very significant in a book like the Books of Magic, or in some of these other books. So I don't really know how he fits in, but but I'm assuming that he is probably a major character in the Books of Magic because of Ghost Critic's enthusiasm about this character being in this book, because he's a big fan of the magically kind of inclined books from DC. And I was never really a big fan, at least not until recently. And even that is, the stuff that's happening now is more interesting to me than the stuff that happened then. Again, we have kind of this double cross at the end, and it really does seem like it comes out of nowhere. And I'm sure that we'll get, it did surprise me. Madame Xanadu's whole discussion with Timothy Hunter, how basically they kind of really fucked this kid's life up. So I'm anxious to see where this all leads, and if someone can explain to me kindly how this actually ties into, what if Timothy Hunter does indeed come from the Books of Magic, or if there's just something that I'm not remembering from Hellblazer or anything like that. Please let me know. But this just a terrific book. Mikael Janin doing the art on this is really terrific. It's a very exciting, very intense book. Lemire does some terrific character work, and just the fact that we have John Constantine is kind of being the de facto leader here of this kind of band of misfits is very unusual and very cool. So it's a very easy 4.5 out of 5 for Justice League Dark number 11. On to my picks of the week. And there are two. And this is, again, both of these books are almost always near the top or the very top of picks of the week. The fact they both came out the same week, it was hard to choose between them, but ultimately I went with what I feel to be the stronger book. So what I will start off with, the kind of runner-up, if you will, was Manhattan Project's number 5. This work that Jonathan Hickman and Nick Pitara are doing in this universe of, this kind of what-if kind of storyline out of, people, obviously very famous people like Oppenheimer and Einstein, Feynman, and, FDR, and Enrico Fermi, and so on and so forth. Basically, in this issue, we have the aliens that came to Earth to talk about going to the stars, and the previous issue's whole kind of mystery about the monolith that Einstein has. Both kind of come together in this book because these aliens, they are visited upon by some of these Soviet scientists and American, or I should say military, if you will, and American military to try and get some of their secrets. And of course, it's Dr. Oppenheimer who really makes the most progress because he eats the brain of the kind of lead alien, the one that can actually only speak English. And so he gets some serious noms in, and that's the sound effect, nom, 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 as he's devouring the brain of this alien, this race of alien called the Seal. And basically finds out that there is this kind of almost galactic ongoing war within the Milky Way galaxy, and that there are these different species of aliens all over the place. And we have Oppenheimer kind of dealing with his massive multiple personality complex in the midst of all this goings on as he's trying to talk about what these races are doing, what they want. And what they want that's on Earth is something that's called a pulling way. And there's where, of course, we have the monolith, Einstein's monolith. And I can't really explain what happens next, because it's just eye-explodingly awesome. I mean, it's just, there's so much, just incredibly, just, this book conceptually works brilliantly. Just on that merit alone, it's a great book. This particular issue works so great because of the work that we've already been introduced to with, the character of Oppenheimer and how he has this, massive, multiple personality complex, and that in fact it does have something to do with devouring other people's brains. And, that's kind of how he divined this kind of strategy to help get, to help kind of kickstart the American space race. But involves actually going through this monolith, or gateway, pulling way, to visit this alien world. And there they kind of release a kind of their secret weapon, if you will, against these aliens, but much to the chagrin of a couple of the scientists that go with them. And it's apparently part of the plan all along. Just the character work here, the great work that Nick Pitara puts into his, into his characters, just his artwork is just stunning. Hickman, just, this is the type of stuff that Hickman is such a genius at doing. Just creating these really high concept books and following them up with enough intelligence and enough strong character work and development to keep it fresh, interesting, and always fun and smart to read. So this was a very easy 5 out of 5 for Manhattan Projects number 5. Not reading this book, please get on board, because it's such a smart book, it's such an entertaining read, and it's just terrific. And this leaves me, of course, to my pick of the week, which, if you know what comics came out this week, and if you know me, this comes as no surprise, but it is I, Vampire number 11. Basically, we have in this issue vampires, a superpowered vampire and regular vampires, versus undead zombie mummies. So it's like, okay, how just awesome can this book keep getting? It's just tremendous. I mean, I love this book. First of all, aside from people like, Greg Capullo and, people like Yannick Paquette, I would say that probably, one of the best artists that DC has right now is in Andreas Sorrentino on I, Vampire. His art is just breathtaking to behold. I know I meant to, of course, include J.H. Williams, but I haven't seen a lot of his work lately. But that will be changing apparently with the next issue of Batwoman. But Andrea Sorrentino has not left this book, so that is definitely a step in the right direction. Because I, Vampire is the teaming of Josh Falkoff and Andrea Sorrentino is really it's one of those perfect marriages of writer and artist. They seem to really work off of each other's ideas extremely well, and just the writing is so tight, because basically we have Andrew and Mary and their vampires. They've been kind of Andrew's kind of suckered these vampires into kind of almost not a mutual self-destruction, but a kind of almost thinning of the herd, if you will, because it was kind of his role in bringing the Van Helsings to take on these vampires. But these vampires, because of kind of these totems that they're wearing, these Egyptian totems that they're wearing around their neck, after death, they do become these kind of mummy zombie hybrids, if you will. And they have some very unexpected side effects on the vampires themselves. And you have Professor Broughton and Tig basically being left to die on the the B-52 or whatever the hell it is that that the Van Helsings partially flew there in. And you know, so we have, you know, just some terrific character work between the two of them, some really nice interplay, and of course, you know, Andrew Bennett using the benefit of this power that he's gotten, this massive power boost from Kane, and also the Justice League Dark, in, you know, in kind of trying to encapsulate this this area of this massive battle that's going on. But there's some very unexpected reinforcements. Is the word of the day as far as this this issue is concerned. But it's just, this comic is so fun, so incredibly engaging. It's such a joy to read week after, you know, month after month, I should say. It's such an underlooked comic, and I feel bad that more people aren't reading it, because this is really at the top of the pile every week, that every month that it comes out. It's just one of those books where it's like, it's the first one that I dive into, because it's like, oh man, this is fucking great. You know, just looking at this gorgeous Sorrentino art, and just how Fialkov just keeps bringing these new ideas in this book. You know, these new villains, these new threats, these new kind of alliances, and it makes me so deliriously happy to see this very kind of. I read, because they released recently a graphic novel that I got the chance to read. It's basically a collection of all of the issues of House of Mystery that featured the iVampire stories, and it's an interesting read, because the character actually wasn't very well fleshed out, fleshed out, excuse me. And you know, I think they kind of, you know, kept the kind of Dracula-esque kind of aesthetic alive, maybe a little bit too much in these older issues where he was first introduced. But now he's become a much more modern character. He's, you know, very in step. And it's just, from the very first issue, this has been just an absolute, you know, fantastic read. Could have easily gone the other way, but again, Fialkov and Sorrentino just continue to defy everybody's expectations of this book, and it's one of the very best books of the New 52. So if you're not getting it, you're making a mistake. And sadly, the first trade, this was one of the first, you know, again, you know, the first trade doesn't come out until late, you know, until next month, till the end of August. So that sucks. That, you know, because it's really leaving people kind of in the dark. You know, if you're not getting it. So I mean, get back issues, get this book if you're not reading it already, because it's just fantastic. So that's it for the comic review segment of this week's New Comics Bitches! So, just as a reminder, of course, to all of you who are looking to win my contest, you know, hardcover edition of the first Batwoman trade, beautiful J.H. Williams art, some really good storytelling, and some extra swag that I scored off of eBay, and maybe even some personal trinkets that I will throw in that belong to me, because I think that they will be liked by you. So, of course, this is for my review. If you do a video review of Batman the Unknown, submit it to me as a video response to any of these recent, since the contest began. So it's to the shadowgallerycomics.tumblr.com is where you can find it. You'll have to scroll down a bit. It's kind of a lengthy read. Thanks to those of you, Agent 42Q, Ghost Critic, Gambit, I forget your numbers after your name, of course, Sleepy Reader 666, who've all done just some really helpful reviews on this work of mine. So if you have the time, please read it. Please submit your video responses, your video reviews of this comic, and because I will announce the winner next week because next Monday is the close-off point for this contest. So, and I will be announcing the winner at that point in time. I have a pretty good idea of who it is right now. So unless somebody has something better to say, I shouldn't say better, because like I said, be impartial, be a critic. That's what I want from you. I want you to critique it. I don't want you to say, I love it, and it's so great, because I'm putting this out there because obviously I want you to take a look at my work. I want you to give me feedback on it, on what doesn't work, what does work. So keep it going, people. I know Sleepy Reader 666, I know that you don't particularly want anything in return for this. So whether or not you want to be disqualified, you might want to let me know. More officially, you can leave a comment below. Again, I'll post a link, but that's it. I put my review of the Amazing Spider-Man film on this page here today. If you've seen the film, please watch it. I'd like to see what your thoughts are on it. If you haven't seen the film, you might want to ignore it because it is spoilerish. So, again, thank you for watching. If it's your first time, feel free to subscribe. If you're a returner, like it. Thumb it up, thumb it down, leave comments. Don't be a dick, and just keep the love light shining, because this is me, James Donnelly, from the Shadow Gallery, saying goodbye and reminding you to stay in the shadow.